I talk a lot on here about, well, I talk a lot on here, period. But one of the things I have spoken quite a bit about on this app is how in the first maybe 10 years of da'wah in Mecca by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so like the first 10 years of his preaching, it centers two main ideas, and they are ideas of creed, right? The two main ideas are that La ilaha illallah, that there is no God but Allah, and the idea that there is a hereafter, there is a Yawmul Qiyamah, there is a day of resurrection, a day of judgment. There's a day when everything will end and everyone will be held accountable. And there is a wisdom in this. And I kind of already said it, but let's unpack this just a little bit. If you look at the state of Mecca at the time, what was society like? It was corrupt, okay? All forms of corruption, financial corruption, moral corruption. You know, slaves were being trafficked and bought and disposable and treated as less than human, subhuman, less than animals even. They were burying their newborn daughters alive. They were all sorts of theft, all sorts of deception, all sorts of, we don't even have to talk about like substance and adultery, right? Zina and alcohol, just completely everywhere, rampant. Nudity, rampant. So it was a bleak time. It was a bleak time for society. Really, really dark, really, all forms of immodesty and immorality just widespread across the city of Mecca. So why did Allah choose to center the first 10 years of da'wah on the fact that, on the belief that there is no deity except Him, except Allah, and that there is a day of judgment? Why that? Why then? Why there? And that's because of accountability. Corruption spreads because there is no sense of accountability. When people feel like they can do whatever they want and no one's going to hold them accountable and they are basically immune to whatever kinds of consequences, then they do whatever they want. That's how corruption spreads. The lack of accountability is how corruption spreads. But by instilling, by drilling into the people of Mecca in the first 10 years of da'wah that there is one and only God, which is Allah, and there is a day of judgment, that gives them two elements of accountability. It gives them a who, like someone will hold them accountable, and that someone is not a fellow human being who's like on the same elemental ground as everybody else. The one who will hold you accountable is this utmost ultimate power, this omnipotent being, this entity is going to hold you accountable. And the belief that there's a day of judgment instills a when. So both these elements of accountability, a who and a when, someone will hold you accountable and someday you will be held accountable. When these two elements of accountability are drilled into the people of Mecca in the first stretch of da'wah, that's how revolution starts. That's how reform starts. It starts with the thinking, it starts with the creed, it starts with the belief. Because imagine if the first revelation that Allah sent down was that you have to leave adultery, leave zina. It wouldn't make sense to them. Who would we leave it for? Why would we leave it? Why on earth would we leave zina? It's rampant. No one feels the need to leave zina. There's, again, no accountability. Why on earth would we need to leave it? Similar for khamar, or like alcohol, substance. If the first revelation was to leave substance and abandon substance and to ban alcohol, it wouldn't make sense to them. It's our everyday, it's our enjoyment, there's no clear reason for us to abandon it. But once the people of Mecca believed, and when I say believe, I don't mean just like, oh yeah, that makes sense, sure, yeah, I believe that, there is a one and only God and like there is a day of judgment. No, like when I say believe, I mean like when you say iman, like full faith that manifests even in your actions. Like when we say amantu billah, when we say I believe in Allah, it's much deeper just than the word believe. But basically, when the people of Mecca believed that there was a one and only God, and there is a hereafter and a day of judgment, the day of accountability, then they gained that sense of accountability. They gained that sense that I will be questioned upon everything I do and think and feel and go through or not do. And so later, much later, after that creed was instilled into the people of Mecca, much later, when Allah did send down the revelation to leave adultery and to leave alcohol then it became easy for them, because then it made sense to them. Yeah, because we are going to be held accountable. We believe in a one and only Allah. We believe in a hereafter. And that sense of accountability makes it sensible at that point for them to abandon the things that Allah has told them to abandon, that Allah has henceforth made impermissible for them, like zina and alcohol. There is wisdom, there is hikmah in the chronology of how things were sent down and how the da'wah was spread, and what the Prophet ﷺ did and said and agreed to. And that's why studying seerah and studying the context and studying the asbabun nuzul, like the reason why a verse was sent down, is just, it's so important for Muslims to understand these things and not just recite the Quran all willy-nilly. While yes, purely reciting and rehearsing the Quran does have its virtues, Allah also obligates upon Muslims to tadabbur, to reflect on the Quran. And people who don't reflect on the Quran, you know, their hearts are locked. You don't have access to the deeper part of the Quran. We are so quick to pick apart other forms of literature and other forms of media whenever we engage with them. Papers, articles, videos, lectures, whatever other piece of media or literature we would probably engage with day to day, day in, day out. And I think a lot of us carry this unspoken assumption that we've exhausted the Quran, but really we have so much still to unlock. The Quran is far from being exhausted, far from being irrelevant. It's just that we have to tadabbur. We have to reflect, ponder. That's all my yap today. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.